What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of JT Sports Live, aka the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We are only 2 days away from the 2026 NFL Draft, which brings me with good and some bad news. The good news is we have our last mock draft until the draft kicks off. The bad news is if you enjoyed mock draft season, this is the official end of it. But I have what a lot of you all have requested, some trades. It's not a mock draft without some wild trades, so I'm throwing some in there. I got some surprise risers that a lot of you all probably will see as reaches until draft day rolls around, and a few of the guys that I have on this thing that you think are reaches end up finding some way to go in the first round. There's going to be some guys that have some big draft day falls that we don't see coming. We'll dive into my last mock draft later on the show. The Bengals and the Steelers are getting hated for doing everything they can to win. You would think these two teams trying to put the best teams on the field would give them praise, especially the Cincinnati Bengals, since they apparently are felling Joe Burrow. They're going to make him go out like Andrew Luck. In spite of everything the Bengals try to do to help Joe Burrow win, it just is never good enough. Same thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. No matter how good of an offseason the Steelers have had so far, people still aren't satisfied. They still feel like trying to win instead of trying to tank for a quarterback. It's the wrong decision by Pittsburgh. A.J. Brown, the saga between him and the Eagles is coming to an end. According to a bunch of reports out there, he is expected to be a New England Patriot after the June 1st post-trade deadline. So he'll get shipped off finally to the Patriots, and we can put an end to this A.J. Brown saga. But this A.J. Brown trade that's coming up on the horizon proves more about the downfall that the Eagles are now starting to suffer through than it does A.J. Brown being the diva, drama queen. And it also opens up a big power shift that we're going to see in the NFC East for who takes this division. Also got some thoughts on Fernando Mendoza and why the Buccaneers season is already over. If you live, eat, breathe, and die football, congratulations. You have come to the right place. We're talking all things football, NFL, college football, 24/7, 365 days throughout the year. If you're a diehard football junkie, you can't go a day without getting your daily football fix in. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you do not miss when we drop new content. Also, we are not just a YouTube channel. We are a podcast. You can find this episode along with all of our previous ones in audio format on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify. The links are down in the description, in the pinned comment section above. If you enjoyed the episode, you want to support the pod, you want to support the grind, all we ask is that you give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. It takes less than 10 seconds to do. The links are down in the description, in the pinned comment section. Follow us at JT Sports _ on all of our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram at JT Sports _ on X and TikTok at JT Sports _ wherever you're at on social media. You can follow us at JT Sports _ We post bonus content. You can stay up to date with everything that's going on with the podcast. We respond to DMs from time to time. Make sure you're following us at JT Sports _ on all social media platforms. Without further ado, let's dive into it. Give me a second. I got my headphones going. I kept hearing like a little humming sound. I was trying to figure out where's that humming sound coming from. Turns out I forgot to put the AirPods in the case. People keep saying that the Cincinnati Bengals are failing Joe Burrow. They're setting him up to in his career the same way that Andrew Luck's career ended. And the Bengals have been called cheap, stubborn, unwilling to adapt to the modern times of the NFL. They keep trying to put together a family dollar roster. But anytime the Bengals spend money in free agency, like how they just done to improve their defense, trading for Dexter Lawrence, it's never enough for people. Anytime the Bengals are demanded to do something in favor of helping Joe Burrow succeed, it's always used against them as why Joe Burrow needs to get out of Cincinnati. People keep moving the goalposts on the Cincinnati Bengals for the sole reason of they want to see shit hit the fan with Joe Burrow and the Bengals. The NFL doesn't seem to care about Joe Burrow winning with the Bengals. They seem to only care about Joe Burrow winning outside of Cincinnati on a bigger market team, putting him on the team that has a bigger fan base, better national appeal, because no matter what the Bengals do in order to better their team for Joe Burrow to have success, the goalpost always gets moved against the Bengals. First, everybody was yelling how the Bengals were too cheap an offseason ago when they were having some issues extending both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Then Joe Burrow came out and publicly said he would love for both of those guys to get long-term extensions. The Bengals go ahead and they stop being cheap. They do what Joe Burrow asked. They extend his two best receivers. Then it was, oh, they paid them too much money. You can't pay two receivers, wide receiver one, money. You can't allocate 40% of your salary cap to three guys in your offense. How are you going to be able to put together a complete team? Your defense isn't going to have any money at all to have a good unit on that side of the ball put on the field. So what did the Cincinnati Bengals do this offseason after everybody was shitting on them for how bad their defense was, the lack of investment they put into that side of the ball last offseason, doing what Joe Burrow asked, paying Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? So the Bengals this offseason, they go, we got to fix that defense. We got to improve the pass rush. So they spend over $100 million on three big additions that they made in free agency on defense. Regardless of how you feel about those signings, they still at least try. They at least somewhat are better now than what they were last year. Then the Bengals go out and they trade for sexy Dexter Lawrence, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the National Football League. They give up the 10th pick for him, and they give him a new extension. And somehow the Bengals trading for Dexter Lawrence is a bad move. They got fleeced by the New York Giants because instead of using the 10th overall pick on an unproven commodity, which the Bengals need defensive line help, they weren't going to be in position to get any of the top defensive linemen picking 10th overall, which is why it made sense for the Bengals to trade that pick to the Giants and get Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence is not washed. He's not falling off. Dexter Lawrence had the worst season of his career last year. You can give Dexter Lawrence a little bit of grace for having a down season when he was playing through injuries and the Giants defense just simply wasn't that good. Dexter Lawrence has been one of the few defensive tackles in the league that has been a premium player, which means that he's the kind of player that you have to give up a lot if you're trying to get defensive tackles that affect the run and can get after the quarterback the way Dexter Lawrence can. Are very rare. Very rarely do you find a defensive tackle as good as what Dexter Lawrence is. That's an all-pro level player. Guys like Dexter Lawrence that play a premium position that's in a high demand with a low supply normally go for what the Bengals have to give up to get him. You're not going to get an interior defensive lineman as good as Dexter Lawrence for a second or third round pick. The Giants couldn't come off of Dexter Lawrence for anything less than what they got from the Cincinnati Bengals. Dexter Lawrence does nothing but better the Cincinnati Bengals defense. If we're being honest, Dexter Lawrence is going to be a better addition to that defense than what it would have been the Bengals deciding to extend Trey Hendrickson and keep him around. Trey Hendrickson is 32 years old. His best football is behind him. Dexter Lawrence still has a lot of good football ahead of him. He's only 28 years old. 30 is normally when you start to see players regress or decline. Dexter Lawrence still has a lot of great football left. The Bengals have given Joe Burrow everything that he's asked for. They wanted him to pay Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, keep his two best weapons around. They did that. And they spent big money to make it happen. Somehow the Bengals are still viewed as a cheap organization, though. This offseason, they spent over $100+ million on improving the defensive side of the football. Somehow the Bengals are still failing Joe Burrow. Improving the defense, going after Dexter Lawrence was a mistake. Everything that people have asked the Bengals to do to help Joe Burrow have success, they've done, and the goalpost has been used against them, and those moves that people were saying they needed to make are now being flipped to diminish the Bengals in the situation that they're trying to give Joe Burrow. The Bengals were never going to have a complete roster. The Bengals are still going to be a team that's offensive dependent. They aren't going to have an elite offense and an elite defense because they're investing the majority of their money into the offensive side of the football. When you have an elite quarterback like Joe Burrow, you can't have it all because when you're getting paid so much and your two best weapons are getting paid a chunk of the salary cap, your team is going to have flaws. With the amount of money that's being invested into Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and the majority of that offense, it's supposed to be able to overcompensate for some of the limitations that the Bengals are still going to have on defense, because you're not going to go from having one of the worst defenses in the NFL to having a top 5 unit overnight. And the Bengals don't need to have a top 5 defense. They just need their defense to get a few stops here and there. The offense is going to score at least 20, 30 points per game. If the defense can just allow 20, 21 points, that's solid. The Bengals just need an average defense to be a Super Bowl contender. This is an offense that can hang 40 on you with ease. You don't need to have the Legion of Boom or the 2015 Denver Broncos defense. You just need a defense that's okay. And the Bengals have went to the Super Bowl before for defense that was okay. They had a top 12 defense the last time they went to the Super Bowl, and they lost to the Rams. You see, the issue with the Bengals that people have is not them trying to give Joe Burrow a situation where he can actually win. People hate the Bengals because they just want shit to hit the fan between Joe Burrow and this organization. The media wants Joe Burrow to fail on the Bengals so they can use that to further push their agenda of getting Joe Burrow traded from the Bengals onto a bigger market team that everybody loves to talk about, that everybody wants to watch. Folks are more interested in Joe Burrow playing for somebody else than they are seeing Joe Burrow bring a Super Bowl to Cincinnati. They want Joe Burrow to fail so they can blame it all on the Cincinnati Bengals, say that they didn't do enough to help him win, and then they can get all the clicks and all the attention when Joe Burrow finally retires or he asks for a trade. People want Joe Burrow to be a loser on the Bengals because nobody wants to watch Joe Burrow play for the Bengals. They want to see Joe Burrow play for the Vikings, play for a big market team that's always in primetime games. That's the reason why the Bengals always get overhated for every single move that they attempt to make in order to better Joe Burrow's chances of winning a Super Bowl. They don't want Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. That's the only way that you can explain why the Bengals offseason moves are getting critiqued the way that they are. You can't say they're not trying. The team definitely is better, but it doesn't matter though, because people have already made their minds up on what they want. What they want is for Joe Burrow to play for another team not named the Bengals, and they're going to use every move the Bengals make, flip it as if this is a move that's going to hurt Joe Burrow, not help him win. And that's how people are going to get their way when the Bengals underachieve again. They don't go anywhere. They're going to say, yeah, this is why Joe Burrow needs to get out of here. Even though I think the Bengals have a very good chance of making it to the playoffs and possibly making a little bit of noise in the postseason this year with some of the moves they made so far this offseason. According to Adam Scheffler, Ian Rappaport, and several other credible NFL sources out there, A.J. Brown, after June 1st, is expected to officially be traded to the New England Patriots. So the A.J. Brown saga with him and the Eagles is finally about to reach an end. And this A.J. Brown situation is bigger than just another diva wide receiver wanting out because he cares more about stats and numbers than he does wins. A.J. Brown has been frustrated with the Eagles for going on 2 years now. And it now feels like, with him being on his way out, that A.J. Brown's frustrations with the Eagles says a lot about the downfall that they are now about to experience. With him being gone, the Eagles no longer are going to be as explosive on the perimeter as what they have been for the last couple of years. And a lot of A.J. Brown's frustrations lie with the two most important pieces of the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. Jalen Hurts is not a good quarterback. Being a Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl MVP, does not make you an elite quarterback. It means you're good enough to win a Super Bowl. That's all that means. You're good enough to not mess it up. And Jalen Hurts has had some really good playoff games. But if you put Jalen Hurts on the Bengals and you put Joe Burrow on the Eagles are a much better team, and the Bengals just got tremendously worse at quarterback. Jalen Hurts is only as good as the team you have around him and the guy he has calling the plays from. Joe Burrow doesn't need to have a perfect team to lead you to a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow took the Bengals to the Super Bowl with the worst offensive line in the NFL that year. Jalen Hurts can't overcome any limitations. He needs an elite offensive coordinator, an elite offensive line, an elite group of receivers to throw the football to, and an elite rushing attack. If Jalen Hurts doesn't have a complete, perfect situation, he's going to struggle. And A.J. Brown has been alluding to Jalen Hurts not being as good as how Eagles fans believed he was since he won a Super Bowl MVP. He's been saying that Jalen Hurts wasn't really that great. And people kept saying that A.J. Brown was being a drama queen. He's making things more difficult than what they have to be. But if A.J. Brown was truly happy with the Eagles, he wouldn't want out. Jalen Hurts is the reason why A.J. Brown wants out of Philly. Nobody wants to play with a quarterback that can't get them the football consistently, especially when you have a guy that's overthrowing you when you're butt open. Jalen Hurts is not a bad quarterback, but he's not a good quarterback either. And when you have a receiver as good as A.J. Brown, and he knows that there's much better quarterbacks that he could play with, he's going to be very vocal. And A.J. Brown's frustration isn't random. It hasn't just been something that's just been popping up. It hasn't been media manufactured. This has been going on for the last 2 seasons now. And the Eagles are now at a point where you can't hold players hostage. Mike Tomlin always said this the best. We want volunteers, not hostages. A.J. Brown doesn't want to be a volunteer for the Philadelphia Eagles anymore. He doesn't want to play with Jalen Hurts. And he definitely doesn't want to play for Nick Sirianni anymore. Jalen Hurts is part of the problem with the Eagles, but he's not the entire problem with the Eagles. Nick Sirianni is supposed to be an offensive-minded coach, yet he doesn't know anything about how to get more out of the offense. He has to delegate that duty to whoever he hires as his offensive coordinator. Last time Nick Sirianni called plays in Philadelphia, the offense sucked, which is why he gave up the play calling to, at the time, Shane Steichen. And Lord and behold, what happened a year when Shane Steichen took over as the Eagles OC? They went to the Super Bowl. What happened after Shane Steichen left and Brian Johnson became the Eagles OC? Jalen Hurts wasn't functional. Nick Sirianni got exposed for being just a good cheerleader, not a good X's and O's coach, not being able to make adjustments, and the Eagles underachieved. The following season, they bounced back. They won the Super Bowl after adding Saquon Barkley, hiring Kellen Moore as their OC, Vic Fangio as the DC, and the Eagles were the best team in the NFL from week 1 to the end of the Super Bowl. It was no doubt that the Eagles were going to win it all. What happened this past season when Nick Sirianni with his decision to make Kevin Patullo the offensive coordinator. Jalen Hurts looked broken. The offense was stuck in the mud, and Nick Sirianni was exposed again for just being a good cheerleader and not an actual good head coach that knows how to make adjustments, that knows how to get the most out of his team. A.J. Brown getting traded to the Patriots is not just a bad reflection on Jalen Hurts. It's a bad reflection on Nick Sirianni and the rest of the Philadelphia Eagles organization. They care more about catering to their Super Bowl MVP and keeping a head coach around that obviously is not qualified to be in this position than they do actually trying to listen to A.J. Brown and make the changes that he felt was necessary for this team to continue the success they've had prior to last season. A.J. Brown was right about everything that Eagles fans have continued to deny about Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. What's so ironic is Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni both are equals in their respective positions. Jalen Hurts is the Nick Sirianni of quarterbacks. He's only great when he has a good supporting cast around him. Nick Sirianni is the Jalen Hurts of head coaches. He's only good when he has an all-star coaching staff and an all-time great roster. You have guys like Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, who have been able to do more with less, versus guys like Nick Sirianni. If they don't have the Avengers for a football team, they're not really going to go that far. A.J. Brown getting traded to the Patriots has made so much sense that you can't keep denying it anymore if you're an Eagles fan. There was a recent podcast appearance that A.J. Brown made. They asked him about his relationship with Mike Vrabel, what it was like playing for Mike Vrabel. He said that Mike Vrabel was his favorite coach to ever play for. The connection that A.J. Brown has with Mike Vrabel is more genuine than the connection that he ever had with Nick Sirianni. A.J. Brown views Mike Vrabel as like a leader, a second father figure to him. Nick Sirianni is just a good business partner that he doesn't take that seriously. Mike Vrabel never had to scream at A.J. Brown on the sidelines when he was with the Tennessee Titans. Like how Nick Sirianni has had to scream at A.J. Brown on the sidelines during his time at the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not brotherly love either. It's brotherly conflict. And the Eagles have so much inner tension within their franchise that the only way you're really going to be able to improve the mood, the atmosphere, the environment, and the high-pressure situation that this season is going to be is by somewhat taking a little bit of the tension off yourself and getting rid of the guy who kind of is airing out all of the dirty laundry, which has been A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown was never going to last on the Philadelphia Eagles because when you're not as dominant as what you used to be coming off a Super Bowl season, the offense is falling off, and the receiver already knows the quarterback isn't good, the struggles aren't going to do anything but amplify the frustrations. And Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni's incompetence and how overrated they are at the respective positions is the reason why A.J. Brown wants to get the hell out of Philadelphia. He knows that the Eagles aren't that good as what they could be due to who they have holding them back at the two most important positions of power, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. And with A.J. Brown getting traded to the Patriots in a few months, you're going to see the Eagles really fall off. If you thought last season was bad for the Eagles, I think this season, not only do they not win their division, but they missed the playoffs altogether. They probably finished 8-9, 9-8. In spite of how talented the team is, it doesn't matter how good the team looks on paper if everybody's not aligned. For you to be a good team is more than just how good does your roster look on a piece of paper. How good does your roster look on Irelands.com. It's about everybody being bought in, putting your egos aside, your pride aside for the sake of the team. It has to be one team, one goal, and the Eagles are not one team right now. Minus A.J. Brown, it's just a bunch of egos, a bunch of individuals that aren't willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the team, and A.J. Brown realizes that. That's why he wants to play for Mike Vrabel. And when he saw the Patriots make it to the Super Bowl, it was more validation for him to get the hell out of Philadelphia and get back to playing with his dude, Mike Vrabel. What really pisses me off every offseason about the way the Steelers are talked about is how people keep acting like the Steelers, no matter how good the roster may look, with them not having a long-term solution at quarterback, they need to suck. They need to just go ahead, burn it all up, trade away everybody, and just tank for a quarterback. And this quarterback that they tank for is magically going to fix everything that has hindered the Steelers from winning the playoff game over a decade. Getting the quarterback is finally going to make the Steelers Super Bowl contenders. The Steelers tanking instead of trying to build off an already good foundation is a better decision. The Steelers should just sell it all for just this one player. This one quarterback is just going to fix everything magically for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is completely nonsense. This is the 6th straight offseason, and I'm not making this up. You can go back to 2020. People have continued to wrongly predict the Steelers' decline because of this fantasy that the Steelers need the tank because it's the only way they're going to get a franchise quarterback. Do you people know that the Bills traded up for Josh Allen, the Chiefs traded up for Patrick Mahomes, the Ravens traded up for Lamar Jackson? You do not need to intentionally suck and sabotage your future for the sake of trying to get a quarterback. A good quarterback can be anywhere. If you just have a good eye for talent, you can find a good quarterback in any round. Tyler Shuck was supposed to be doo-doo, and this dude was one of the biggest surprises in the entirety of the NFL last year. You can find a solid franchise quarterback anywhere. People act like just because you have one of the worst records in the NFL, you're automatically guaranteed to get one of the best quarterbacks available. You can get it wrong at quarterback. People have drafted bust high all the time. You can tank for a quarterback and they still not do good. Look what happened to the Miami Dolphins. Remember when they were saying tank for Tua? Where did tanking for Tua get the Miami Dolphins? It got them a few feel-good years, and now it's right back to the basement, right back to the drawing board. The Ravens, the Steelers' biggest ops in the AFC North, got Lamar Jackson because the Steelers made the decision to pass on him for a box safety and allow Ozzie Newsome, a Hall of Fame general manager, to trade back into the first round to get Lamar Jackson. They got him with the final pick of the first round of the draft that year. Did the Ravens need the tank to suck for Lamar? No. Did the Chiefs need the tank to get Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes? No. The Bills didn't need the tank to get Josh Allen either. The Steelers are too good to tank. They're too good to have to rebuild. The Steelers are not far away from being Super Bowl contenders. This team just won the AFC North last year at 10-7. Remember everybody saying that when the Steelers first signed Aaron Rodgers, it was going to be a disaster. They weren't even going to finish with a winning record. Despite Mike Tomlin being the only head coach in NFL history to never have a losing season, the Steelers still overachieved. They won a division, and they made it to the playoffs. So if the Steelers are this consistent, despite not having a franchise quarterback, wouldn't it make more sense for the Steelers just to continue to build off the foundation that they already have? So when they do draft a quarterback in next year's draft, he has a better infrastructure than what he would if you were just to trade everybody away. And the Steelers don't have that much that they can really trade away that makes sense. Trade away Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, that's one thing, but trade away Cam Hayward and TJ Watt would not be the Steelers rebuilding. The Steelers don't have a lot of aging veterans that they can just trade and flip them for picks. The majority of the Steelers' best players they've drafted over the last 4 or 5 years. Look at their new offensive line. Everybody that's going to be starting on the Steelers' offensive line this upcoming season, but one person would have been the Steelers' draft pick over the past 3-4 years. The wide receiving core has been revamped. The Steelers went from having the worst receiver room in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers throwing to Kenneth Gainwell and DK Metcalf as his two best options, to now having DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, Darnell Washington, and Pat Freiermuth. You feel very good about that core pass catchers Aaron Rodgers is going to be throwing to this season than what the hell they had that brother throwing to last year. The Steelers Also have a lot of young pieces on defense mixed in with a good amount of veteran experience. This is not a roster that you can tear down and just trade everybody for picks like it's Madden. You got to find guys that want to trade for these aging vets, and nobody's going to be giving up that much for TJ Watt or Cam Hayward at the current stages of their careers. The Steelers are too good to burn it all down anyway. It doesn't make sense to completely burn down a team that consistently wins 10 games or more every year and makes it to the playoffs. When you continue to lose in the playoffs, the answer isn't, let's burn it all up and start over. The answer is, what are the 2-3 pieces that we're missing that can finally bring us some postseason success? Which is getting a new head coach, which the Steelers did that. Getting somebody who can maximize all the money that the Steelers have invested on the defensive side of the football. The Steelers have did that. Finding some long-term stability at quarterback. The Steelers haven't done that yet, but they have found somebody that's good enough to get them by and possibly raise their ceiling for their current situation. We know that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to take the Steelers to the Super Bowl. Nobody's saying that Aaron Rodgers makes the Steelers a Super Bowl contender. But what Aaron Rodgers does is gives the Steelers a shot this year of making it back to the playoffs and finally winning a playoff game. With the team that Aaron Rodgers has this year, he's better set up for success in his final season than what he was in his first season in Pittsburgh. His first season in Pittsburgh, the Steelers gave him the worst situation that you could ever put a 42-year-old quarterback in. He has a young, inconsistent, injury-prone offensive line. You got the worst offensive coordinator that God ever created, and Arthur Smith calling plays. You have nobody but DK Metcalf and Kenneth Gainwell to throw the football to. Then when DK got suspended for getting into it for fan, the only reliable option you had was Kenneth Gainwell. And you got Stevie Wonder and Mike Tomlin at head coach when it comes to quarterback and putting together a good offense. All the odds were against Aaron Rodgers last year. And in spite of it, Aaron Rodgers still had a damn good season for what somebody should have that age and such an awful situation that he was in last year. I hate how Aaron Rodgers gets talked about as if he's no good. He's the worst quarterback in the NFL. This dude threw 24 touchdowns and 7 interceptions with his two best weapons being DK Metcalf and freaking Kenneth Gainwell at running back with Arthur Smith calling the plays. And people make it seem like Will Howard is guaranteed to be a better answer than Aaron Rodgers this year. We need to see what Will Howard has. No, the hell we don't. We need to see Will Howard show us that he can earn the starting job and not be given the starting job. You want to give Will Howard a handout because you're looking for the next Tom Brady. Newsflash, you're not going to find another damn Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the greatest outlier in NFL history. He's the greatest player that ever play this sport. And yet, anytime there's a quarterback that gets drafted in the 6th round or 7th round, oh, let's give this guy a shot. I'm pretty sure this dude can become the next Tom Brady. There's been over 200 quarterbacks that have been drafted since Tom Brady went in the 6th round that people have said, yeah, this is going to be the next Tom Brady. I want to see Will Howard take a preseason snap first before I start clamoring that this dude's better than Aaron Rodgers. This dude can be the next Tom Brady. This dude is the franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I would think for a franchise that's supposed to be the gold standard of this league, they will have higher standards than just starting a 6th round pick that has taken no preseason snaps, not a single regular season snap, opportunity to prove himself. But instead, since the Steelers are so desperate for a franchise quarterback, they need to just be okay with anything. Aaron Rodgers may not be the most sexiest option, but he's the best option that the Steelers have right now if the goal is to try to win this season. And starting Will Howard, just because we need to see what he has, that's not smart when you have a defense that you're investing so much money into. When you have so many aging veterans on this team, they rather go with Aaron Rodgers. Somebody that's proven, somebody that they know they're going to get good play out of. It's funny how fans of the Steelers have a much different perspective on Aaron Rodgers than what the actual guys in the locker room do. Everybody that's on the Steelers roster has said that they want Aaron Rodgers to come back. They love Aaron Rodgers, and they believe Aaron Rodgers gives them the best chance to win this year. I trust what the players think more than I trust what a lot of you fans are saying in these Facebook groups trying to find the next Tom Brady. There are Raiders fans saying that Aiden O'Connell is going to be the next Tom Brady. Well, JT, Will Howard won a national championship. Jamarcus Russell won a national championship. Stetson Bennett won a national championship. J.J. McCarthy won a national championship. And none of those guys did anything in the NFL. The Steelers' offseason moves this season show that they're trying to win now. They're not trying to rebuild. This offseason was built around trying to add win now pieces around Aaron Rodgers so they can give him a better ending to his career than what he would have if he chooses to retire and end on a low note that last year ended on when they lost to the Texans in the playoffs. You don't trade for Michael Pittman, sign a Rico Dowdle if the goal wasn't to get Aaron Rodgers back. Who cares if Aaron Rodgers is dragging this out? Everybody within the Steelers organization probably already knows if Aaron Rodgers is coming back or not. It doesn't matter how long it takes for him to make his decision. As long as Aaron Rodgers decides to come back, it doesn't matter when he comes back, as long as he's back ahead of time for training camp. He didn't need to participate in OTAs or mini camp last year since the dude played pretty well considering how awful the situation around him was. Aaron Rodgers gives the Steelers the best chance to win, but people rather the Steelers suck and be guaranteed the high draft pick, which doesn't guarantee them being able to fix their franchise quarterback situation, since even if the Steelers are bad enough to be in position to draft whoever is the best quarterback next year, there's no guarantee that that player is going to be good. So what's the point of tanking? You're tanking for unproven commodities, which is why tanking doesn't work in the NFL. There's not a single team that has successfully tanked and won a Super Bowl. Don't give me the Texans. If they haven't won a Super Bowl, the tank wasn't successful. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in. Shout out to my guy, Mellering. He says, yes, Steelers need to get Leone at left tackle. First QB in 2027, maybe Nussmeier in the third. Shout out to Chisley7863. He says, yo, shout out to everybody that's tuned in. If you haven't already, do your boy a favor, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you live, eat, breathe, and die football, this is the place to be. We're talking NFL, college football, 24/7, 365 days throughout the year. If you enjoy the pod, you want to support the grind, all we ask that you give us a 5-star review. You can find the links to our podcast in the pinned comment and description below. Also, you can follow us on all social media platforms at JT Sports _ where you can find us on Instagram, X, and TikTok. We post clips, bonus content. We interact with you guys. We answer a few questions in the DMs. So make sure that you go ahead, you follow us at JT Sports _ on all of our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram, X, TikTok, once again, at JT Sports _ Now, I know we are still very early into the offseason. I know that it's still a little bit premature to be making any bold predictions about how good or how bad a certain team is going to be, but I'm calling it right now. The Buccaneers season is already over. The minute they decided to keep Todd Bowles as soon as last season ended was the moment they killed whatever chance this team had at winning this division and making it back to the playoffs. Todd Bowles, a.k.a. Toilet Bowles, has been holding the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back for 3 years now. For 3 years, Todd Bowles has wasted a Super Bowl caliber roster. Todd Bowles is a good defensive coordinator. He is an average head coach. The biggest red flag that the Buccaneers have is Todd Bowles specializes on the defensive side of the football, and yet the worst side of the ball for the Buccaneers these past few years has been the defensive side of the football. If you specialize in a particular area as a head coach, and that happens to be the worst part of your team, you're not a good head coach. The Buccaneers keep underachieving because they have a defensive-minded coach. Their identity is supposed to be defense, and their defense keeps them underachieving, keeps them from being able to go further than where they should have been able to go in the playoffs. As soon as the Commanders lost to Jaden Daniels in a wildcard round 2 years ago, that's when I knew that Todd Bowles had to go. And with the Buccaneers making a bad decision to prematurely extend him before the start of last season, they essentially all but guaranteed that as long as he remains the head coach, the Buccaneers are just forever going to be wasting some of the best rosters in the NFL. And even with what they've lost in free agency, the Buccaneers still are the most talented team in the NFC South. The only thing that has kept Todd Bowles from getting exposed a lot faster than what it's taken for everybody to realize that he's not that good of a coach is the NFC South has been the weakest division in the NFL. The franchises in this division have made bad quarterback decisions, bad head coaching decisions, but now you start to see the Panthers, the Saints figure it out. Maybe the Falcons will or still won't figure it out, but the Saints and the Panthers are legit competition for the Buccaneers for the NFC South. We saw the Panthers win this division last year, albeit it was off a technicality, but if the Buccaneers would have handled business like how they were supposed to when they started 6-2 and didn't lose out after that, they wouldn't have lost this division to a technicality. The Buccaneers are one of those teams that should be a lot more successful than what they've been these last couple of years, and it's all due to Toilet Bowles still being the head coach. Toilet Bowles has been carried by lucking up, hiring two very good offensive coordinators that are now very solid head coaches. Liam Cohen, Dave Canales have already had a lot of success despite being very new to their new jobs as head coaches. You saw what happened with the last offensive coordinator Buccaneers hired last year to replace Liam Cohen. The offense regressed. Baker Mayfield regressed. Baker Mayfield has had a new offensive coordinator every single season he's been under Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles, sure, he made two lucky hires at OC, but he hasn't been able to keep that continuity going. He hasn't been able to build off the foundation that both Dave Canales and Liam Cohen left in Tampa Bay. And now you see, with both those guys being gone, Todd Bowles being regulated to having to get more out of the defense to carry the offense in certain moments, has been able to do that. The cracks already showed last year that Todd Bowles had to go. When you start 6-2 and you still miss the playoffs and you don't win the NFL's weakest division, that told you everything you needed to know about how bad or how mid of a coach Todd Bowles is. As soon as the Buccaneers get a little bit of adversity, the team always falls apart. Good head coaches don't let the season collapse the way that it did for the Buccaneers last year, especially missing the playoffs when you have the easiest division in the NFL. The division getting better, the NFC South getting better as a whole is further exposing why the Buccaneers need to fire Todd Bowles, and they won't go anywhere until they do it. The Buccaneers don't have the same talent edge over the rest of the NFC South as they did 2-3 years from now. The Panthers have a phenomenal roster. The Falcons have a pretty solid roster. They just need a good head coach and a solid quarterback. The Saints could be very dangerous this year. Todd Bowles is surviving off a weak division that has made him look better than what he actually is. And now with the teams in this division getting better, the coaches coming into this division getting better, the coaching gap matters more than what it used to when you don't have the talent advantage as what you once had. And the Buccaneers, look, I know that the draft is 2 days away. We still have 4 or 5 months to go until the season kicks off. But it's safe to say the Buccaneers, until they fire Todd Bowles, not only will they not make it to the playoffs, but they have no shot at winning the NFC South. This dude is a bad head coach. They should have fired this dude after they got shredded by Jaden Daniels in the wild card round, because there's no way you can be a defensive-minded coach and allow a rookie quarterback to slice and dice your defense the way that Jaden Daniels is. Don't give me that excuse, oh, this was the greatest quarterback to ever be a rookie. A rookie quarterback shouldn't be destroying one of the best defensive-minded coaches' defenses in the postseason. You guys remember when you were in school, the little test-taking strategy they used to give you when you had a multiple-choice test? Process of elimination, figure out which of the answers don't make sense, and then pick for the ones that make the most sense. Well, I'm already in the process of doing my process in elimination for who's going to win the NFC East this year. And to me, this division comes down to either the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Giants. The A.J. Brown situation, him about to get traded to the Patriots on June 1st, has cracked the door wide open for anybody other than the Philadelphia Eagles to take the NFC East from them. The NFC East is no longer the Philadelphia Eagles division to lose. The New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys have closed the gap that the Eagles have had on everybody else when it came to the talent advantage that they had over everybody in this division. With the Giants hiring John Harbaugh, the Eagles now have the second best coach in this division. If the Eagles had to choose between Nick Sirianni or John Harbaugh, right now, they're going with John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh has a more respectable resume and a more respectable body of work than what Nick Sirianni has. Nick Sirianni has been a beneficiary of having the greatest general manager in NFL history, giving him these God teams to work with, being able to luck up with a few good coordinator hires, but when the team has a few injuries, the coordinators aren't as good as what you expected them to be, and Nick Sirianni has to step his game up as a head coach, he just isn't able to. The Eagles are no longer the clear runaway favorites to win the NFC East anymore. With the Eagles losing A.J. Brown, you're losing one of the best receivers in the NFL. There is no plug-and-place replacement for A.J. Brown. You're not going to be able to draft a guy that can instantly come in and can produce at a top 10 level for you like A.J. Brown's able to. And with A.J. Brown being out the door, that further is a bigger signal that there's more going on with the Philadelphia Eagles than what meets the eye. It's not just a Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni problem. It's a organization alignment problem. Everybody with the Eagles is not aligned. Not everybody's on the same page. Everybody's going into this season with their own agenda, and that is to save their jobs. Nick Sirianni isn't trying to do what it takes for the Eagles to win this year. He's trying to do what it takes to save his job, to buy him another season in case things don't go right this year. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts doesn't want to sacrifice for the betterment of the team. He wants to keep running his offense, and the Eagles want to put Jalen Hurts in an offense that doesn't fit his strength. You see the issue with the Eagles? It's just everybody has their own wants for how they want things to operate. Nobody wants to compromise. Nobody wants to say, we need to do this, and this, and everybody needs to accept, and that's how we're going to win. Everybody thinks how they want to win is the only way for the Eagles to win, and that has given the Cowboys and the Giants the perfect opportunity to take this division from Philadelphia. I'm telling you guys, either the Giants or the Dallas Cowboys are going to win the NFC East. The Eagles are already disqualified. They got too much inner turmoil to trust this team to live up to expectations because they barely lived up to expectations last year. The Giants got a legit head coach now. We know that both of the Harbaugh brothers, those brothers win. It's not a question of if Jim Harbaugh is going to win. It's a question of how fast is he going to win. It's not a question if John Harbaugh is going to win with the Giants. It's a question of how long is it going to take him to win, and I think it's going to happen this season. John Harbaugh has already a pretty solid offense. You got a solid quarterback. You got Malik Neighbors. You're going to add a receiver in the draft. You got a few holes that you're going to have fixed in the draft. You had a pretty solid free agency. The Giants don't need to have as good as a team as what the Eagles do to beat them. They already beat the Eagles last year when they had Brian Daboll on Thursday Night Football. The Eagles, with them not having the best of coaching, the most talented roster as what they've had in their previous years, the Giants have a real opportunity to dethrone the Philadelphia Eagles for the NFC East. And hell, the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys have always been a team that every once in a while they can be good enough to win this division, win a playoff game or two. Dallas has the easiest path that they've had in recent memory to win the NFC East because they're just as good as what the Eagles are. Yeah, their defense isn't as good as Philadelphia's, but it's not too far off. Their offense is better than Philadelphia's. They got a better offensive line. They got a better group of wide receivers. That assuming that A.J. Brown truly is going to get traded to the Patriots after June 1st. And the coaching, what's the difference between Nick Sirianni and Brian Schottenheimer? Oh, Nick Sirianni has a ring and Brian Schottenheimer doesn't? Nick Sirianni, sure, he has a ring, but he was carried to that ring by having a great team and great coaches. And sure, every coach needs to have great situations to win, but Nick Sirianni's situation is more so one that he's the beneficiary of, more so than him benefiting the situation. I am going to bet money that either the Giants or the Cowboys end up winning the NFC East this year. It just doesn't feel like Washington really has a shot. They're a wild card team, but they're just too Jaden Daniels dependent for me, and I don't have any faith in Dan Quinn, so I guess you can scratch off the Commanders too. So the NFC East this season comes down to either the Cowboys or the Giants, because with A.J. Brown about to get traded, the Eagles are no longer the team that they used to be. They don't have the talent edge over this division. They don't have the coaching edge over this division anymore. Also, it's just the Cowboys, the Giants, and then everybody else for the NFC East this season. I know that the word generational gets thrown around way too commonly, but I feel Fernando Mendoza deserves to be labeled a generational quarterback, because what matters the most in determining what makes a quarterback successful in the NFL, Fernando Mendoza already has. People confuse generational with flashy traits. Folks think a generational prospect means they got to have Jamarcus Russell arm. They got to be able to throw the entire length of the field, or they got to be a Lamar Jackson kind of athlete at quarterback. And that's why people get it wrong so often when it comes to quarterbacks. They overvalue what looks special and not what wins at the position. Fernando Mendoza has all the traits that matters the most when it comes to being a successful quarterback in the NFL. He just doesn't have the ones that are flashy, the ones that are going to stand out on the highlight tape. What makes Fernando Mendoza special can't be measured on paper. It can't be measured in the weight room or on the scale. What makes Fernando Mendoza a generational quarterback is his elite football IQ, his elite accuracy and top-tier ball placement, and also how well he throws with anticipation. Fernando Mendoza doesn't win based off physical traits. He beats you with his mind, and people overlook how important it is for quarterbacks to be able to beat you with their mind than it is to beat you with having a strong arm or being able to do it by outrunning you. Quarterback is more mental than it is physical compared to any other position. You can be the most talented quarterback in the world and still suck in the NFL if you don't have a good mental understanding of the game. You see what has happened to Anthony Richardson, right? Prime example. Anthony Richardson, you could have labeled him a generational quarterback. He had all the tools that you're looking for in an elite quarterback, potentially an elite athlete, elite size, a dynamic arm. And where did that get Anthony Richardson? Nowhere. Fernando Mendoza is being viewed the same way Joe Burrow was as a prospect. You see, Joe Burrow wasn't viewed as a generational quarterback. He wasn't one of those guys that had elite athleticism with a strong arm. That was the knock on Joe Burrow when he was coming out of LSU. There were people saying that Joe Burrow got carried by a great team at LSU, just like how they're saying Fernando Mendoza got carried by a good team at Indiana. How much did Joe Burrow really have to carry at LSU? How much did Fernando Mendoza really have to carry at Indiana? They also questioned Joe Burrow's ceiling. How much was Joe Burrow going to develop at the next level? Nobody ever thought that Joe Burrow was going to be the quarterback that he is now. Anybody that tells you otherwise is lying. And if they say they were a believer that Joe Burrow was going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league when he was coming out, ask them to show you the receipts. Because the same way people are talking about Fernando Mendoza were the same people that were criticizing Joe Burrow's potential at the next level because he wasn't the most physically gifted. He wasn't the most impressive. What makes Joe Burrow a generational quarterback is also the same thing that makes Fernando Mendoza a generational quarterback. They weren't prospects that were going to blow you away with how far they can throw the football or how great of an athlete they are. What makes them generational quarterbacks is their high football IQ, their elite anticipation, their accuracy, and their ball placement. Joe Burrow and Fernando Mendoza are generational quarterbacks because they win from the neck up better than anybody else that normally comes out of the draft. Fernando Mendoza is going to look like a generational quarterback after he gets drafted. Right now, people don't view Fernando Mendoza as a generational quarterback because people attribute a generational quarterback being somebody that has an elite arm, is an elite athlete, and looks good throwing in shorts and tank tops than they do in pads and the helmet. Joe Burrow wasn't seen as a generational quarterback. He is now. Fernando Mendoza, he won't be considered a generational quarterback, but later on down the road, everybody's going to say, oh, I always knew that Fernando Mendoza was going to be this good. No, you didn't, because you couldn't see past what you don't see on paper. What you can't see on paper is how well Fernando Mendoza processes defense, how he goes through his progressions. I'm never going to doubt a quarterback that has the kind of IQ and the ball knowledge that Fernando Mendoza has. If you just listen to Fernando Mendoza talk ball, like really in the weeds, X's and O's, this is the last quarterback that I would ever doubt how good he's going to translate to the NFL. He may not have elite traits, but he's solid at everything, and his football IQ elevates him even more because I want the quarterback that understands the game, not the quarterback that knows how to throw 40-yard passes in between three defenders every once in a while. I've seen that with Anthony Richardson. I'd rather a quarterback not have the best physical traits, but be very cerebral when it comes to his football mind, because that's how Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, some of the greats dominated this game. They weren't dominating the game because of their physical abilities. They were dominating the game mentally. I have some good and bad news. The good news is mock draft season is finally over. We are 2 days away from the 2026 NFL draft kicking off. The sad news is this is my final mock draft. But don't worry, within 2 weeks after this year's draft, I'll be having some mock drafts up for next year's draft, since that's supposed to be a generational draft class. But until then, I'm here to give you guys my final mock draft, and this does include trades. And we're going to start off, obviously, the Raiders are taking Fernando Mendoza first overall. They need a quarterback. Fernando Mendoza is a generational quarterback. He just doesn't look like a generational quarterback to a lot of you all, because you think a generational quarterback is how far they can throw the football, how fast they can run. It's not about how well you understand the game, how high your football IQ is. Fernando Mendoza is the same prospect coming out that Joe Burrow was when he was coming out of LSU a few years ago. He won't start right away. Tom Brady's not going to set him up to fail. He's going to let him sit for a year, wait his turn, continue to build up the team. But I feel the Raiders have a really good foundation moving forward now that they finally have a franchise quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. I have Arvell Reese going second overall to the New York Jets. Now, initially, for my first 3 mock drafts, I had David Bailey going second overall, but it just seems, regardless of what I feel the Jets should do, they're going to do what they want to do, and they're going to take Arvell Reese. Arvell Reese has the highest ceiling out of anybody in this draft, but he also has one of the lowest floors. You could easily get the next Michael Parsons, and you can just as easily get the next Isaiah Simmons. I feel he's better as an off-ball linebacker than he is as an edge right now, but he is a quick learner. They were criticizing how the dude didn't really have that good of a bend. He gets a new trainer. All of a sudden, this dude's bend is getting better by every single training video that he puts out. So I do believe if Aaron Glenn can develop him the right way and use him the right way, he can turn out to be a pretty good player. But the risk is very high. The ceiling's high, but I feel the risk is even higher than what the ceiling is. I have my first trade of this mock draft. I have the Dallas Cowboys giving up the 12th and 20th picks of this year's draft to the Arizona Cardinals to move up to that 3rd overall spot so they can draft Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles. Some of you all may feel like this is giving up too much value for a linebacker since it's a position that's not as seen as a premium. But Sonny Styles is a generational linebacker. He's up there with your Roquan Smiths, your Luke Kuechly's. I'm not saying he is those guys, but I'm saying he's as good as what those guys were coming out. He's phenomenal against the pass. He's good against the run. Sure, is he a perfect player? No, but nobody coming out of the draft is a perfect player. That's what coaching is for. That's what development is about. But out of anybody that I'm willing to bet on that has a high floor and a high ceiling, it's Sonny Styles. Even if he doesn't pan out, you should still have a 10-year starter at linebacker. But if he does pan out, you're going to have the next Fred Warner and the best linebacker in the NFL for the next decade. 4th overall, I have the Tennessee Titans taking Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. For the last couple of months, I didn't feel like Jeremiah Love made a lot of sense for the Tennessee Titans at 4 due to the positional value, but a commenter brought up a very good point that changed my perspective on this. He said, anytime the Tennessee Titans have been good, it's always been them being carried by a good running back, from Eddie George, Chris Johnson, Derrick Henry. When the Titans have been at their best, they've always had a very good running back at the focal point of it. And that's why I now have been convinced that the Titans are going to take Jeremiah Love 4th overall. You need some more weapons around Cam Ward. The best way to help out a young quarterback is by giving him a dependable run game. Jeremiah Love instantly should come into the league as a top 10 running back. He looks the part for what you expect the first-round running back to look like. And Saquon Barkley was really good. Ezekiel Elliott was really good. So you can take a running back in the top 5, top 10 in the draft, and they still be very good as long as you got a good offensive line for him. And I think that Tennessee's offense, their O-line in particular, is coming around. Still needs some work. But when you got a playmaker like Jeremiah Love and Brian Daboll as your OC, he's going to find ways to get the ball in his hands. So I like Jeremiah Love 4th overall to the Titans. I got the Giants taking Caleb Downs with the 5th pick of the draft. You would love for Caleb Downs to fall to 10, but since Sonny Styles is already off the board at 3 to the Cowboys, you got to get somebody on defense. Caleb Downs is the 2nd best player in this draft, right behind Sonny Styles. He's been a generational player since his freshman year, coming fresh out of high school. He was an All-American for Nick Saban. He reminds me of Derwin James. You can just line him up anywhere on your defense, nickel, dime, linebacker, single, too high safety. You can line him up in the slot. He can be that hybrid of a slot corner, good against the run, good against the pass, like a Nick Emawari or Jalen Petrie. So there's a lot of different things that Caleb Downs can bring to a defense, how a defense can utilize him. The Giants need a lot of help in that secondary. Corner still doesn't look that good. Safety is Caleb Downs will make that Giants defense look much more respectable than what it does right now. With the 6th pick of the draft, I have Francis Mauigoa, Miami offensive tackle, getting drafted by the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns have been making their offensive line a focal point of this offseason. They've been eyeing another offensive tackle. They were looking to trade down from 6 possibly. With Francis Mauigoa still being on the board, that makes all decisions of trading down off the table for the Browns, since Francis Mauigoa is the best offensive tackle in this class. Reminds me of Penei Sewell. I like him at right tackle, but he can play left tackle as well. So whichever side the Browns choose to deploy him at, I think he's going to be a stud. He's a mammoth in the run game. He's very good in pass pro. Just an overall very high floor, high ceiling offensive tackle prospect. He's one of those guys that you feel very confident is not going to be a bust. I got David Bailey going 7th to the Washington Commanders. I feel David Bailey falling to the Commanders is the perfect situation, because if Arvell Reese was on the board, that's probably who the pick would be. And David Bailey is a better prospect than Arvell Reese. If you're looking for somebody that can come in and have an immediate impact for you, give you 7-8 sacks, be a finalist for Defensive Rookie of the Year, David Bailey is that guy. He has more pass rush moves than Arvell Reese. The ceiling is just as high for David Bailey as what it is for Arvell Reese. If David Bailey hits his ceiling, you're looking at one of the best pass rushers in the NFL for the next decade. But even if he doesn't live up to expectations, I don't think he's a guy who can't play at all. At worst, he gives you 5, 6, 7 sacks a season. He's a good rotational guy for you. The Commanders, they need hits on defense. They don't need what if this goes right, what if this happens. They need guys that you draft them, you know they're going to be very good players. And I'm very confident that David Bailey, at the bare minimum, is going to be a very solid player. 8th overall, I have Mansour Delane, cornerback from LSU, being taken off the board by the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, their offense is looking pretty good. They need to improve their pass rush and their secondary on defense. At this point, you're not going to be able to get a blue-chip pass rusher. I feel Mansour Delane makes more sense since he's already from the area. You need somebody else that you can pair it with Kool-Aid McKinstry. Mansour Delane is your prototypical elite man-to-man press corner. That's what the Saints need right now. I have him going 8th. On the clock with the 9th overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I have the Kansas City Chiefs taking Miami pass rusher Ruben Bain Jr. I know there's a lot of concerns about what's come out about the off-the-field incident he was in and the car accident he was in that he didn't face any consequences for. You got concerns about his arm length. All I know is when you watch the tape of Ruben Bain, you see a very good football player. You see a football player that wasn't held back by anything. Nobody had any character concerns about him. That was really just a one-off thing. He's the first guy in, last guy out the building. He helped bring back the University of Miami. And the guy had over 80 pressures last year going up against some of the best offensive lines in college football throughout Miami's playoff run, from Texas A&M to Ohio State, Ole Miss, Indiana. Ruben Bain, F the measurables. If you're judging Ruben Bain Jr. by the film, you see a very good pass rusher, one that I expect to be around for a very long time, and he's the perfect fit for what the Kansas City Chiefs need right now. They need somebody that's nasty, somebody that's very violent, creates a lot of havoc behind the line of scrimmage. Ruben Bain's going to bring that. He's good against the run, and he's even better against the pass. And the Chiefs haven't had a good pass rusher since Chris Jones. Outside of him, they don't really have anybody else that can really cause fear for opposing quarterbacks. Ruben Bain would immediately change that. With the 10th overall pick, I have Cornell Tate, Ohio State wide receiver, going to the Giants. Since the Giants aren't going to be in position to get any of the blue chip players on defense anymore, Cornell Tate makes a lot more sense. You need another dynamic receiver to pair up with Malik Neighbors. You need another target for Jackson Dart to throw the ball to. With Cornell Tate now, you got a really good offense around Jackson Dart. You got Malik Neighbors, you got Cornell Tate, you got Tracy and Scottaboo at running back. And don't forget, you signed Isaiah Likely in free agency. You add Cornell Tate to what looks to be a very good offensive core already. You make it even better to where you could have the best offense in your division if you end up drafting Cornell Tate 10th overall. With the 11th pick of the draft, I have the Dolphins drafting Tennessee cornerback Jermon McCoy. There's a lot of different ways the Dolphins can go at 11. You can go offensive line. You can go receiver. I feel with Jeff Hafley being a defensive-minded coach, he'll probably go corner since that's the biggest need that the Dolphins have, in my opinion. The offensive line needs a little bit of work, but when you got guys like Storm Duck and other randos starting for you at corner, you need to address that position. And Nick Saban said it best. Your defense is only as good as what your secondary is. Even if you got a good pass rush, it doesn't matter if you don't have guys who can hold up in coverage. If guys are going to beat immediately off the line on a 5-yard slant or a 10-yard out, it doesn't matter how good the pass rush is if the quarterback's getting the ball out fast enough, which is why you need good corners. Jermon McCoy is the second best corner in this draft. Before he suffered that ACL injury at the start of the offseason last year, he had the best season out of any corner in college football in 2024. And he looked pretty good in his pro day coming off that injury. There was some thoughts that maybe he could have came back during the second half of last season for Tennessee, but he's fully healthy now. I don't think it'll be a Will Johnson situation. You're getting a very good corner, one that is very much needed right now with the current state of that cornerback room on the Dolphins. I have the Arizona Cardinals with the 12th pick of the draft, taking Alabama offensive tackle Caden Proctor. Now, remember, they got this pick from the earlier trade that they made in this mock draft, giving up the 3rd pick of the draft to the Cowboys for the 12th and 20th selection. So they have an additional first-round pick after this. They want to improve that offensive line. You already got Paris Johnson. You picked up his 5th-year option. Now you need another good offensive tackle on the opposite side of him. Caden Proctor is a little bit of a developmental project. Somebody that never really lived up to his potential in college, still has a lot of juice that if he goes to the right situation, a good coaching staff could be able to squeeze out of him. And he can be a very good player, very athletic, phenomenal size. He's built like Trent Williams, but doesn't have the footwork nor the consistency that Trent Williams has right now. But if you're the Arizona Cardinals, you're not expected to compete for much in your first season under Mike LaFleur. Getting a guy like Caden Proctor, allow him to struggle for a season, then he comes around in year 2, makes a lot of sense, especially if you plan on drafting Ty Simpson, wherever that may be, late in the first round, early day 2. I have the LA Rams drafting USC wide receiver Mekhi Lemon. They need a slot receiver right now. Jordan Whittington is their projected starter at slot. They had some talks about possibly shipping off Devontae Adams. Maybe he ends up retiring at the end of this season. We don't know what the Rams are going to do when it comes to Puka Nacua and his future, of how he's been kind of tweaking off the field, and he's due for a massive contract extension. Mekhi Lemon could be their wide receiver of the future, regardless of which direction they choose to go at that position. Mekhi Lemon makes a lot of sense. He's compared as Amon-Ra St. Brown, JSN kind of receiver. I think he's more JSN than he is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra has mainly been a slot receiver. Mekhi Lemon can play both in the slot and on the outside. And when he was at USC playing for Lincoln Riley, he primarily was on the perimeter. He has very good acceleration, very smooth route runner. He's just a very smooth receiver. Not explosive. He's not going to blow you away, jumping out the gym like Jordan Tyson. He's not going to be able to make the acrobatic catches that Cornell Tate can make, but he just gets open. If you're looking for just a route running technician, Mekhi Lemon is your guy. I have the Baltimore Ravens taking Penn State offensive guard. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name since I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm not going to disrespect the brother, but this is supposed to be the best interior offensive lineman in this class. The Ravens, they lost Tyler Linderbaum to the Raiders in free agency. They need to upgrade from Daniel Flamin-Young. I think if you get Ione from Penn State, you improve one of the positions of need on the interior offensive line. He probably starts at guard, probably can't play center for you, but that's okay. You can find some starting caliber centers in the 4th, 5th round of the draft. 15th overall, I have the Buccaneers drafting Miami edge rusher Akeem Mesidor. Sure, the brother is up there in age. That doesn't matter for the Buccaneers. They need all the help they can possibly get on defense right now. They need corners. They need linebackers. They need pass rush help. You can start improving one of those spots by drafting Akeem Mesidor. If it wasn't for the age, Akeem Mesidor probably would be up there with Arvell Reese, Ruben Bain, David Bailey, because his production last season matches the production of any of the top pass rushers in this class. He's a guy that can come in and have instant production for you right away since he's played so much college ball. He's been developed so much that he's pretty much coming into the NFL as close as what you can be as a finished product, coming fresh out of the draft, fresh out of college. With the 16th pick, I have the New York Jets taking Arizona State wideout Jordan Tyson. Now, there's been a lot of talk as of late of Jordan Tyson possibly going a lot higher than this. Maybe he goes anywhere from 12 to anywhere within the top 10. I don't know about that because you still do have the injury concerns. But one thing that you can't deny is that you talk about brothers that run routes with juice. Jordan Tyson just runs routes with a lot of... He reminds me of Christian Watson. He runs very high up. He's just very jumpy, if that makes sense. And that could be a good or positive depending on who you are, because I do feel his playing style is a little bit to do with why he kind of does have some durability concerns. But if you can get 16, 15 games out of Jordan Tyson every single season, I think you're getting a damn good wide receiver. You're getting like a 1,100, 1,200-yard receiver. He's like a better version of Christian Watson. At least he moves like Christian Watson. I was telling one of my homeboys this, and he didn't really see the comp. I was like, watch Christian Watson run and watch Jordan Tyson run. They both run very high up. They have like this herky-jerky running style. I think Jordan Tyson's very good. I think he'll be a better version of what Christian Watson is. That's just kind of my comp for him. And if you watch Christian Watson play and you've seen Jordan Tyson, you might understand where I'm coming from with the Christian Watson and Jordan Tyson comp. 17th overall, I have the Detroit Lions drafting Utah offensive tackle Spencer Fano. The Lions offensive line is a very big question mark entering this season. They got to figure out who's playing left tackle. It looks like that's going to be Penei Sewell. So you got to get a right tackle. Spencer Fano, I think he's one of the better offensive tackles in this class. I don't think the potential is high, but I definitely think that he has a pretty solid floor. I think at worst, you get like at least an average offensive tackle. Which you get an average offensive tackle, even the first round, that's a win. Because most offensive tackles aren't even average at this point. Most of the time, you're just finding below average guys, and you're just hoping that they don't get your quarterback killed. And I feel Spencer Fano may not be a flashy pick, but he is a pick that I believe most Lions fans would be happy with, considering what they've lost on the offensive line this offseason. With the 18th pick, I have the Minnesota Vikings taking Oregon safety Dylan Thielman. Harrison Smith is no longer with the Vikings. They need a replacement for him. Wouldn't it be a better replacement than Dylan Thielman? Dylan Thielman is one of the most underrated players in this draft this year. Even though I don't know if I can keep calling him underrated, since I see a lot more mock drafts having him go a lot higher around this range. But in terms of the safeties in this draft, it's Caleb Downs, Dylan Thielman, and then it's everybody else. And I don't think that the gap between Caleb Downs and Dylan Thielman is actually that big. Dylan Thielman has very good instincts. He just has a knack for finding the football. And the play that showed me on Dylan Thielman being the first-round pick was when he had the game-winning interception against Penn State. one of the first times in my life watching a football game where I saw somebody get user lurked in real life like how they do in Madden. On the final play of that game in overtime between Oregon and Penn State, Drew Aller completely didn't see Dylan Thielman at all. It's like the dude came out of nowhere, jumped 30 feet in the air, and called game. He's a very good tackler also. He can cover tight ends, running backs out of the backfield. So the same way that you can use Caleb Downs, you can use Dylan Thielman in that same capacity. The downside with Dylan Thielman is I don't think he's anywhere near the athlete that Caleb Downs is. Caleb Downs is something special. Dylan Thielman, he's a good athlete, but not an insane athlete. Like one of those dudes you would have thought got ejected with the super soldier serum. When you look at Caleb Downs, I feel like he could be Captain America. If you told me that they put the super soldier serum in Caleb Downs, I would believe you. Dylan Thielman doesn't move like that, but he's more so a good player because of his instincts, his ball skills, and his knack for just making plays. And you can never go wrong by drafting a safety that just knows how to make plays. With a 19 pick, I have the Carolina Panthers selecting Clemson offensive tackle Blake Miller. We don't know what the hell is going on with Akim Ekwonu. Is he even going to be the same player? We really don't know. The Panthers can't really leave that up to speculation. They got to go ahead and make sure that they can continue to protect Bryce Young. Blake Miller is one of the better offensive tackles in this class. Solid run blocker, pretty good in pass protection, and he's already familiar with the area, so it makes a lot of sense for the Carolina Panthers at 19th. With the 20th pick in the draft, I have the Arizona Cardinals drafting Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. Now, initially, I was against Ty Simpson being a first-round pick, but, you know, the more I go back and I watch his film, the way he played in the first half of 2025 has me sold that he can be a first-round pick. With how weak this quarterback class is, if you need a quarterback and you got to draft one, Ty Simpson is okay for this part of the draft. The Arizona Cardinals, he's a good fit for the kind of scheme that Mike LaFleur is going to be running there. It's going to be a West Coast Sean McVay kind of offense where it's more so about how well do you throw the ball with anticipation, accuracy within the short intermediate areas of the field, than how good of an athlete you are, how strong of an arm you have. It's more so about your football IQ, your ability to read pre and post snap. Ty Simpson's pretty good in all of those areas. He's Mac Jones with a little bit more spice. He's Mac Jones, but with more athleticism. But I think if you put a Mac Jones in a Sean McVay style offense, he's pretty good. Hell, he was good with Kyle Shanahan. So although I'm not the biggest fan of Ty Simpson, with what he'll be going to with the receivers the Arizona Cardinals already have, having Trey McBride, continue to improve the offensive line, I think Ty Simpson could be a serviceable starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. May not be like a Sam Darnold, a Jaden Daniels, or a Caleb Williams, but I think he could be a Brock Purdy kind of quarterback for them, and that's decent. If you can get winning quarterback play, that's something. You're asked for that. You haven't had that in a while, and I wouldn't say Kyler Murray was a winning quarterback since he didn't really win that much with Kyler Murray. I think that from a scheme standpoint and a need standpoint, it makes sense for the Arizona Cardinals to take Ty Simpson here. I have Indiana wide receiver Amari Cooper Jr. going 21st overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers added Michael Pittman. They still need a slot receiver to replace Calvin Austin. Amari Cooper Jr. would be that guy. Now, there's been some debates about what Amari Cooper's true draft value is. Is he worth being drafted in the first round, or is he more of a second-round guy? I feel like at this point, if you need a receiver, you can't go wrong with Amari Cooper Jr. He's a good route runner, has good hands. He's good after the catch. I like him because he reminds me a lot of a Pittsburgh Steelers receiver that I loved a lot, in Deontay Johnson, minus the character concerns. Plays just like Deontay Johnson, but with way more reliable hands. So I love him 21st off the board to the Steelers. With the 22nd pick, I have the Chargers taking edge rusher Kedrick Falk out of Auburn. Very good run defender. Very good first step. I think he has very good get off. Jim Harbaugh, I think he'll get the most out of a guy like a Keldrick Falk, who's a little bit of a tweener, more of like an early day to late first round kind of guy. You got Khalil Mack, who pretty much is 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door, close to retirement. So you can end up having him be more so of a rotational piece this year. Then next season, he gets a lot more of the snaps. I have another edge rusher coming off the board at 23 overall. I have the Eagles taking T.J. Parker out of Clemson. You talk about a guy that has elite athleticism, very good first step, a lot of juice getting after the quarterback. T.J. Parker, I wouldn't be shocked if he goes a lot higher than this. I feel like the media is a lot lower on him than what teams may be. The Eagles need some more help on their defensive line, especially when it comes to getting pressure after the quarterback. They had some injuries last year that kind of held them back. And then overall, the talent they have there just isn't what it needs to be. TJ Parker would be a pretty good pickup for the Philadelphia Eagles. One of my favorite players in this year's draft. 24th overall, I have the Cleveland Browns doubling up at offensive tackle, taking Monroe Freeling. And why I have them taking 2 offensive tackles is I don't really know what they plan on doing with Titus Howard, and I don't know if they plan on moving somebody to guard, but it seems like they just are going all in on improving the offensive line, which makes a lot of sense. Offensive line is their biggest need. Instead of receiver, you can find a bunch of good receivers in this draft later on. I'm pretty sure Zachariah Brents could be in play for the Browns later on with the connection that Todd Monken has to Georgia. But Monroe Freeland just makes a lot of sense for the Browns, has Georgia ties. Todd Monken was at Georgia, so he already has some familiarity with Freeland. The scheme that he's going to be running, Freeland already has good understanding of. So I think that the Browns double dip on the offensive line. They take 2 offensive tackles in the first round, and one of them, they probably end up moving the guard. With the 25th pick of the draft, I have the Chiefs trading with the Chicago Bears, giving up the 29th pick in the first round and the 4th round pick in this year's draft. So they can go ahead and select Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq. Kenyon Sadiq makes all the sense in the world for Kansas City here. Travis Kelce is about to retire. And even with Travis Kelce playing this year, you can still have Kenyon Sadiq and him on the field at the same time, since you're probably going to be running a lot of 2 tight end sets. You're probably going to be running a lot of 11 and 12 personnel. I think that Kenyon Sadiq in the hands of the right offensive-minded coach can be a problem. And Andy Reid, I feel he could get the most out of Kenyon Sadiq. He's going to find a lot of creative ways to get him the ball in the space, since with how fast he isn't just one of those tight ends that you're just trying to get involved vertically downfield. You can throw some bubble screens to him, let him get matched up one-on-one in the open field against the defensive back, and I'm pretty confident he wins that battle 90% of the times than most. Kenyon Sadiq is just a playmaker that the Chiefs need. And the offense that kind of is devoid of playmakers right now. You got Rasheed Reese, Kenneth Walker. You bring back Travis Kelce, but you still need a little bit more. I feel like Kenyon Sadiq will make a lot more sense here than receiver, since I'm not really high on the receivers that are on the board right now, nearing the end of the first round. With the 26th pick, I have Buffalo taking Toledo safety Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. They could go linebacker here. They could shore up the defensive line a little bit more, but they have a big hole at safety. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, he's very athletic, has a lot of juice, and how he just goes about attacking defender or attacking against the run. I think he's really good against the run. I think he has very good ball skills as well. And initially, he started off as a top 15 pick a few months ago. Now he's going anywhere from late first, early second. The Bills, they need some more talent on the back end of their defense, and McNeil-Warren will give them that. Picking 27th overall, I have the 49ers taking Caleb Lemieux, offensive tackle out of Utah. They have agreed to an extension with Trent Williams, but they got to start looking for the future at left tackle. Caleb Lemieux will make a lot of sense. Very powerful. Still trying to get a little bit more comfortable playing the offensive tackle position, but if he doesn't work out, you can move him to guard. The 49ers just got to start looking for their left tackle of the future. They can't keep letting Trent Williams hold him hostage for more cash every offseason, because eventually he is going to retire, and you rather figure out his replacement now than wait for him to retire, and then all of a sudden you're stressing out trying to rush to find a replacement and you can't find a decent one. 28th overall, I have the Houston Texans going Peter Woods, interior defensive lineman out of Clemson. They already improved the offensive line in free agency. Now they can continue to beef up that defense. Peter Woods is a great fit for the Houston Texans. This will be a huge steal for them. Peter Woods had a very interesting 2025 season. Coming in, he was viewed as a top 5 pick. And although he played well, he didn't play up to the high expectations that he had in the preseason. But for a defensive tackle that can give you the kind of run-stopping ability that Peter Woods has, along with the upside that he possibly could bring getting after the quarterback, he would be a perfect fit, 28th overall. At worst, you get a very good run defender, somebody that won't do much against the quarterback. But at his best, you get not just a very good run defender, but a very good pass rusher. And you don't normally find interior defensive linemen that can play both the run and the pass at a very high level, like how Peter Woods has the upside to possibly be able to do. So he makes a lot of sense for the Texans at 28. With the 29th overall pick, I have the Chicago Bears drafting Texas A&M pass rusher Cassius Howell. Like Ruben Bain, you have concerns about the length. He is still very good against the run. I feel he can be a very good rotational pass rusher for the Bears at the moment, which is what they need. Outside of Montez Sweat, you don't have really anybody that is dependable enough to get consistent pressure on the quarterback. Cassius Howell can give you a little bit of juice in third down situations. And then as he continues to develop and becomes a better overall 3-down player, he ended up getting more snaps, more reps for you. By his third season, he should be a full-time starter. With the 30th pick, I have the Dolphins taking Clemson cornerback Avion Terrell. If that last name sounds familiar, yes, he is the younger brother of Falcons star corner A.J. Terrell. And he probably could go a lot more higher if the demand for corner is a lot higher. I already had the Dolphins taking Jamal McCoy earlier in this draft. I have them doubling up at corner because at this point, I don't think there's an offensive lineman prospect worth taking. You could probably get a good offensive guard like Manuel Pregnon, early day 2. Avion Terrell, getting him with Jamal McCoy, you will have 2 of the best cornerbacks in this class. And with your 2 first-round picks, not only do you improve the biggest weakness of your defense, but you turn those 2 biggest weaknesses into your 2 biggest strengths. Because if both Avion Terrell and Jamal McCoy hit, you're going to have one of the best cornerback duos in the NFL for years to come, and that's going to help out your pass rush. And yes, you could start on the line of scrimmage, but if you don't have a secondary, you don't have a defense. That's what Nick Saban said. With the 31st overall selection, I have the New England Patriots taking UCF edge rusher Malachi Lawrence. Now, Malachi Lawrence probably is one of those who names. You said who? Malachi, who is this dude? He's one of these guys that is going to get hyped up closer and closer to the draft because of how insane his pro day was, how phenomenal of an athlete he is, and what his upside possibly could be in the hands of the right coach. He's one of those late draft day risers because of the athleticism and the potential. And I think at this point it's worth banking on that. Now, like the Dolphins, the Patriots also could go offensive line here, but I feel the offensive line help that you would get here, you could get in day 2. I think that with the upside, the flash, the athleticism that Malachi Lawrence brings, he makes a lot of sense at 31 for New England. And with the final pick of our last mock draft of this year, we have the Seattle Seahawks taking Chris Johnson from San Diego State. Very good size, very good athlete, has some very good film. And He's a very good pickup for Mike McDonald for what he wants to do defensively. He loves these big, athletic corners. Makes a lot of sense for the kind of scheme that he runs. A lot of zone coverage. So this is it. This is my final mock draft 2 days away from the 2026 NFL draft kicking off. Let me know your thoughts on this mock draft down in the comment section down below. And I appreciate everybody for tuning in to this episode of JT Sports Live. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in, from Chili7863, Mel Ring, shout out Sean Ackridge, shout out Ice Wyatt 22, shout out to my guy M Spark, shout out to everybody that tuned in to tonight's episode. I will see you guys shortly.